Hi, so in this video today I'm going to show you how to make a fully lined fanny pack with two pockets, one main compartment, a back pocket, and the best part is that the lining, it's fully lined, there are no exposed raw edges, and you don't have to use any bias tape. Make sure if you want to follow along with this tutorial that you purchase the fanny pack pattern from my Etsy shop. The link will be in the description below. Once you have purchased, come back to this video and we will start from the beginning. I've already got everything cut out. These hollows are going to be my exterior and the blue is my interior. And I went ahead and I interfaced the back of the interior lining in addition to the exterior. That's not in the instructions. You don't need to do it. I only did it so that way it's easier to tell the difference between right side and wrong side when I'm sewing together, to help clarify that. So I already went ahead and I prepped my zippers. Just make sure when you're doing that, you want your zipper length with the tabs to match with the piece that they go with. And I'm going to start with the part of the pattern of sewing together the back panel. Okay, so I'm setting aside everything but the A pieces that we have. So we have exterior, interior, and then we need the shorter zipper. And what you're going to do is you're going to have the exterior piece right side up. Take your zipper with the main part of the zipper facing to the left. You're going to lay that right side down so the right sides are together. And then you're going to take your lining, piece A, and put that right side down on top of the zipper to sandwich the zipper together. And then you're going to sew a straight line through all three of the pieces. Okay, so you can see I did a straight line, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you're going to open up and you want to press both pieces away from the zipper. So I'm going to take this to my iron. I'm going to press right here. Okay, now that I have that pressed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch at about an 1/8 inch from the seam, and I'm going to go all the way across, and then I'm going to, since I already have the bigger stitch, I'm just going to baste all the way around to keep these two fabrics together. Okay, as you can see, I now have my top stitching, and then I have stitched along the edge to get my two pieces together. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to flip this over so right side is down and you've got your lining up, and then you want to take one of your piece, lining piece C, you should have two, and you're going to place one copy on right side down on top, and you're going to match up all the edges, and then you're going to baste them together all the way around. So basically what this step is doing, it is creating the pocket. This is the back pocket, so it's making it so you won't have any seams, raw seams on the inside of this pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and go sew that. Okay, so I've basted one of the lining pieces C to the back of my newly formed back pocket piece. As you can see, it's not, it doesn't exactly line up because there's going to be a little variation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the lining down a little bit behind it to make that even. And the bottom can be within the 1/2 inch seam allowance. It's just this, it's important on the top part of the zipper because you're not going to be able to really add or sew much closer to the zipper if you don't go within the 1/4 inch. So then what we're going to do is we're going to set this whole piece aside. This is now considered the back pocket panel. And now we're going to go to the front and sew the front part of the fanny pack. So this is piece B, we've got exterior lining and zipper. So this is going to go together similarly as the back pocket panel at first. We're going to take the exterior right side up, zipper with the zipper head to the left, put that right side down on top, and then you take your lining and you're going to put that right side down and sandwich the zipper between the two pieces, and you're going to sew across the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I went ahead and I sewed the 3 pieces together, and I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press, and then I'm going to top stitch at about 1/8 of an inch, and there we have our front panel piece. So now what we're going to do is attach the top flat pieces, which are these guys over here. What you want to do first is you're going to fold the front panel piece in half, and then you're going to mark the center on the zipper, and then you're going to do the same thing with your exterior piece. You're going to fold in half, and then you want to find the center mark, you want to mark the center of the rounded edge. So you can't really see it that well on the zipper, but I have the center marked there, and then I have it marked on here as well. And now I'm going to unzip, and then I'm going to start with matching. Now you can see, okay, so we're going to match, this is right sides together. So see, this is the right side of the front panel piece and the right side of the flat piece. And you're going to pin along the top, along the curve and the top zipper, top edge of the zipper. It's easiest with this open because it makes the zipper a little bit more flexible. But you definitely want to start in the center. And then make sure you're not pulling the zipper too taut. But you want to guide it along the edge. So I usually do a couple one way and then I start going the other way. I highly recommend pins and not clips, just because you do not want this to move while you're sewing. Okay, so I've got this all pinned. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to very slowly and gently sew, starting at the edge here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance to attach it to the zipper. Okay, so you can see I sewed with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. My right sides are facing. So if you flip this open, you can already see it's starting to form the shape of the fanny pack. A little helpful tip, I did start with my zipper completely open, but then to get around the head of the zipper, what I did was put my needle in a down position, lift up my presser foot, and I zipped it back a little bit so that way I could get over this last little part. So now we need to do the same thing with the lining. So this is the same concept, the sandwich concept, where you know how when we put the front of the pack together and the back pocket together, we sandwich the zipper between the exterior piece and the lining piece? Well, we're doing the same thing here, but we have to sew twice because of this curve. So we just put the exterior onto one side of the zipper, so you want to flip it around. And now we're going to line up the interior piece on the other side, right side down, because your right sides will be facing and your zipper will be sandwiched in the middle. So to do that, you'll want to take your flat piece, that is the lining, and you want to find the center of the curve. And you mark that. And then if you can't see your mark on your zipper, you can fold it in half again and kind of try to find it. So then you'll once again pin your flat piece to your zipper, but this time it is lining with right sides facing. You can see the right side of my exterior, right side of my interior. Zipper sandwiched in the middle. And you go ahead and you're going to pin along here, just like you did with the exterior. And then I'm going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Best for that is once you have it pinned, bring it to your sewing machine, sew along the same line. I just did all my pinning. I just wanted to show before I do the sewing. You can see the sandwich technique that is going on. So here's the exterior lining fabric, and the zipper is in the middle. So see how it's sandwiched, right sides together? So I'm gonna go ahead and sew that. I'm gonna follow this 1/4 inch line. You just wanna make sure that you follow exactly, or you go in just a little bit more, or else you're gonna see the stitching when you turn it around. So I've now sewn the interior lining of the flap together. I just want to emphasize that this is not an easy step. You need to go slow. You need to move your zipper when you find you need to. And by zipper I mean along the track of the zipper. And you gotta give yourself a little patience. Like it's not easy. I've made this pattern so many times and it's still not easy. But if you want an easy assembly, you would be using a pattern that requires bias tape to cover your seams. And this one doesn't. So now you want to open that up. You want to check your zipper. Make sure you didn't get too close to the zipper. I'm going to make sure it closes. Watch, mine won't close. So this is why it kept catching on the lining. So you want to make sure you pull taut the seam, go press it a few times, and then make sure it zips. Again, make sure you press really well. And make sure your zipper closes. So now I'm going to top stitch along the flap all the way around through every layer, and that's really going to help keep your lining out of the way of your zipper so you don't get it stuck. Just make sure it's pressed really well away from the zipper. You don't want any extra fabric in there that you don't need. And I'm going to go take it to my machine and sew around. Okay, so now we have the nicely top stitched flat panel. Okay, so now we have the entire front part of the main pack. We have our back piece left, and we have one more of the lining piece C. And then we also need our webbing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the length of webbing that I need and get that ready. Got my webbing. We're going to attach the webbing to the back panel piece. I like to just keep my webbing all one piece until I'm ready to put the clip belt on. So what you're going to do is I usually just try to center it on one edge, and then you're going to try to make sure your webbing is straight. I need to do the same thing on this edge. Now usually what I do is I use a zigzag stitch. Also, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a lighter and I'm going to seal these ends. And then I'm going to zigzag stitch them in place. If you do not seal the ends, you're going to risk your fanny pack belt ripping right out of your fanny pack. I've had that happen. You don't want it to happen. It's possible to fix it when it does, but it's just best if you don't have to. I have attached the webbing to the back panel piece, and then went ahead and just folded this up and clipped it so it kind of helps keep out of the way for the next part. Okay, we're now on to the step that you've all been waiting for, putting the fanny pack completely together. First things first, make sure your front panel zipper is open, because we're gonna need to turn through there. What you want to do is, with your right sides facing, we're going to pin together. This is the right side, the exterior is the right side. We're going to pin together the front and the back. The side, what we're going to match is, you've got the curved edge, it's going to match the curved edge on here. These sides match together. And then this is the tricky part, because it's not going to be a perfectly straight line because it is a curve as well. But you're going to pin only the exterior piece of the top flap to the top of your back piece. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that together and then show it to you while it's pinned together. Okay, so I pinned the top part. You can see I have the lining free. The easiest way I found to do this is if you, because it was this way, right? So if you pop it back inside, outside in, it's going to make it easier to separate the lining and the exterior. Now remember, we're doing the exterior pieces first. So when I say right sides facing, that's the exterior pieces. The exterior face, or right sides facing. So then, since I've got the top already, what I did on that too was I started in this, I found the center. There, you might still have a little mark unless you're, I use like the heat eraser pen, so my mark erased, but find the center of the two and then pin in from the center and then go out to the edges. Right here on both sides, I'm going to warn you now, are going to be the most difficult part. But just follow along with me and I'll show you a way to make sure that this doesn't cause you too much trouble. So now, the reason why you want to start in the middle is because it might not match up exactly on the ends. You might have a little extra on your back panel and a little extra in your front. Whatever it is, it's fine. Once you pin the top together, you can trim down whatever has excess just a little bit, or leave it and just make sure you sew the correct, both through all the layers. So I'm going to go down. Now, you've got this part right here. Now I know I said you don't want to sew the lining, but you can sew the lining right here. The important part though is that once you get past this edge, you don't sew the lining. You just want to sew together. Sew together, including the lining here, and then I'm going to fold it back and sew along here. So you're going to pin all this together. Make sure your webbing stays inside. Pin all of this, and then again you're going to get to here. Okay, the whole thing is pinned together. This is your back panel piece. So this is again why we basted the lining of the back panel all together to be one piece, so that way you don't get confused as to which lining needs to be separate. So this back panel is considered one full piece. There's nothing on it considered lining for the main fanny pack. This is your lining piece that coordinates with this exterior piece. So I've got my front panel lining piece free and my top flat piece lining is free. So now that I have all of this pinned, I'm gonna sew it. I'm gonna do with the zipper edge is gonna be 1/4 inch along there, and then I will gradually increase gradually increase to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to go take this to my machine. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the top, and then I'm going to do along the side, and then gradually change it from 1/4 to a 1/2 inch once I go around the bottom, and then back around. Okay, so I have that sewed together. Before you do anything else, I want you to check this seam here and here. Again, not there. Here, here. And you're going to do that by flipping this bad boy right side out. You want to do this now before you do the lining because you want to fix it now. So it's going to be this little corner part right here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. It's this little junction right here. And it's going to be on both sides. So check it on both sides. Right there. So if you see any frayed edging or weird stitching, you want to go back over that. So I'm going to do it a couple more times because it looks a little weak right there, especially on this side. So turn it back. Okay, you can see the part I'm referring to here. You just want to make sure all your layers, I'm sorry about the focus on this. I'm having a hard time getting it to focus on the right spot. No, that's worse. Okay. There are better photos in the tutorial itself, but it's this little junction right here. You want to make sure all of this exterior gets sewn. If you're missing any piece, so if you need to seam rip a little bit, you go ahead and seam rip. I had to seam rip a little, just a tiny bit of the flap from the front piece, just to get a little bit more of a edge to sew here. Okay, now I'm going to trim my seam allowance down to 1/4 inch, where I did it at a 1/2 inch, which was basically just on the sides and the bottom. I do not, however, recommend trimming your side, because on your side here you have your sealed webbing edge, and you don't want to cut that off because then you're going to risk it fraying and pulling out of your fanny pack. So don't cut the edge. We're going to do basically exactly what we did with the exterior. Now we're going to do with the lining. So we have these lining edges are free. Make sure your zipper is still open. Otherwise you're not going to be able to turn it. So this is just like the back panel piece, but it's lining. You're going to attach it to the top part, the flat edge of your flap lining, which is here. Fold in half, mark middle. If your middle is still marked, go with middle. If it's not, you can fold it in half as well and mark the middle again. Start pinning right sides together, friends. Always right sides together. Now this is the lining, so I'm talking about right sides together of the lining. So you'll pin starting in the middle where your middles match, go along the edge. Once you run out of lining, because you now have your whole pack, sew the whole pack. You don't have to try anything fancy here. But you're gonna have that same, might have that same issue with this part. But it's not as important here because it's going to be in the inside. It's not going to show. So you'll pin all the way around. And then you want to leave 4 to 5 inch gap at the bottom for turning. And you pin all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that and show you. Okay, so the lining I have pinned together. Lining to lining. Take its edges, and then you sew all of it together here and up here, and then lining to lining. I got a gap at the bottom for turning. Voila! You're going to do the same thing with the seam allowance on here. You want to stay at a 1/4 inch along the top. and then you can do 1/2 inch once you get to the corner inside here, and 1/2 inch down and 1/2 inch around. Okay, so now my lining is sewed together. I've got this gap here. This is all sewn together. It's not the prettiest because it gets a little dicey over here, so usually I'll sew as close as I can on the lining and backstitch, cut my thread, pull it out, fold this back down, and then sew where I left off, and then it'll attach a little bit here, which is fine. And now you're going to pull your fanny pack out. Okay, so as I'm pulling my fanny pack out, I kind of noticed that this isn't pulling as far out as I want it to, and that's probably because I sewed a little bit too much on of all the layers together. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it back around, and cut down the edge there with, take a seam ripper, get rid of the seam and kind of get it so I can pull this out more, because I don't really quite like the look of that yet. So actually, I don't even need to pull it all the way out. You can kind of see where it's happening as this stitching right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take that out and try to just sew as far as I can of just the lining. So that way I can pull this out a little bit better. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better style of what I wanted. I had a little bit too close to the edge. Now, if you want to, if you feel this is a little too bulky because you didn't trim your seams, you can trim the seams on the inside, but I would definitely, after you trim the seams, go back over with a zigzag stitch like several times. You do not want this to pull out, especially once you've got stuff in the pack. I got some thread stuck in there that I've got to trim. But anyway, so now what you'll want to do is, once you've got that looking how you want, so you can see here, this looks pretty good. This one looks pretty good too, so I definitely got that the edge that I needed to. I don't have any fraying going on. So then if you open up the back pocket, you have no raw edges. And in here you just have to go back, and you can either hand ladder stitch if you want it to be an invisible seam, or you can just fold under. And I'm going to go over that with my sewing machine and do top stitching over that, and that'll be put back in. So then the last step is going to be finishing the webbing belt.